Hi, this is Kevin Everything Bagel DeKemp.
And I'm Trevor Pizza Rat Dow.
And this is VTV,
the definitive podcast for all things LGBT travel, pop culture, and where we share diverse perspectives from members within our community. Hi, Kev.
Hi.
You look very everything bagel today.
I'm feeling everything bagel. I'm feeling a little more garlicky.
Oh.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like I got a little color. I'm feeling a little relaxed. We just got back from our Mexico resort trip, our Halloween extravaganza, and Dia de los Muertos. How was your week in Mexico?
It was everything I wanted. It was beautiful. There was a lot of amazing people that I always love seeing, some returning guests.
Oh, for sure.
And so it was like this community that I've just like am lucky to be around, really.
Yeah. And I will say too, this was a new resort for VACAYA, new city in Mexico in Playa del Carmen. It was about 400 guests or so, and it was a sweet amount of people. It was a sold out trip, as most of the trips are. It was great. It was just really, really relaxing and wonderful. And I think exactly kind of what I needed to like reset and recharge and come back and
talk to me
and talk to you, because I didn't talk to you enough on that trip.
Yeah, I don't see you enough, Trevor. It's so good
Kevin.
that we get to be around each other for 23 hours a day.
Oh, that is so sweet. I mean, what is always, I feel like, so evident after every trip is the overwhelming sense of community after a VACAYA trip. And, you know, especially after I've done other kinds of trips that are not VACAYA, you know, you don't get that same sense. And so whenever you do a trip, it feels like, oh, okay, this is what really does make VACAYA so incredibly special is that aspect of community.
And ideally, what makes you feel like you are a different person, that you have like come and discovered something by discovering all these people that kind of have a through line that is similar to yours, and you have these connection points that are similar to yours. You are like a reflection, they are a reflection of you, and it's like a reminder of like the great things that you are, in this instance, VACAYA guests.
Yeah. So like, what were you reminded of, like what makes me great?
I'm just reminded constantly, really. Every second I'm reminded how great you are. If I can't see your nipples, it's not a Trevor experience.
Seeing me.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can see my nipples in this shirt.
I can, and that's all that matters.
Oh, that's so true. Well, speaking of community, our guest on today's episode, T.Rex, is so multifaceted and so multi-talented. One of our incredible lounge piano singers on VACAYA trips. But what was your takeaway, or like?
Well, it was insane that we were able to do this interview in Stonewall.
At Stonewall, yeah.
Yeah. They have a upstairs that has like a concert venue.
Yeah.
So like we went upstairs, kind of got to talk to T.Rex.
I do want to say what was so insane about the day that we went to talk to T.Rex is they were prepping for President Joe Biden's appearance at Stonewall for Pride. So we were there, you know, just a few hours before Mr. President was there, which was pretty exciting and
which
cool.
made sense.
Well, yeah, he wanted to meet us.
Yeah, I think he was upset that we weren't going to be there when he was there.
Yeah, it's just our schedule was just so packed for Pride. Like,
I could see him just screaming malarkey.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, share some facts about the significance of Stonewall to the LGBT movement, Trevor.
In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, LGBTQ people were regularly arrested for violating what became known as the 3-article rule. The rule stipulated that a person was required to wear at least 3 gender-appropriate articles of clothing to avoid arrest for cross-dressing. The problem is that the law never technically existed. Instead, accounts suggest that police generally used old, often unrelated laws to target LGBT people. In New York, a law commonly used against the LGBT community dates to 1845.
Yeah, like 100 years before.
Yeah, that's insane. So they would use a law that was 100 years old
to justify this 3-item clothing weird law, and then use it to raid these establishments. And it got too much, and we were able to rebel in a sense. I mean, it seems like there was a lot of events leading to that point. Just the idea that that bar had so much significance, and to be able to be welcomed into it was like a really cool moment.
During Pride, there is just so much going on, and so to be able to like take a minute and be in Stonewall, which is so significant, so important, was just extremely special. And on top of that, getting to talk to T.Rex. Cherry on top. So should we dive into the interview?
It seemed like you were like, I need to make a button happen.
Oh, for sure.
And I've never seen you like consciously try to conclude your thoughts. So this was like a very special moment for me to see.
Oh, I love that for us.
As much as I can see your nipple, I could see you concluding. It's very special.
Well, now that we've concluded that statement, let's get into the interview. Today, we are coming live from a very, very special place, Stonewall Inn, during Pride Week here in New York City. And we have a very, 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 very special guest with us. Would you please introduce yourself, your pronouns, and how you identify?
Yeah, my name is T.Rex. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a pansexual queer brown person living in New York City, and I work here and sing here at the Stonewall Inn.
And we know T.Rex through VACAYA. T.Rex has been an entertainer for a few trips now. Mm-hmm. And whenever T.Rex is on a trip, the trip is always a little bit better. Let's be real.
God, stop.
It's the truth, though. I mean, truly, that's the truth.
Yeah, people need to know when the next show is, when they see you the first time. And then, so yeah. It's
I love that. I have
treat.
so much fun. It's so much fun doing it. It's the best.
Yeah.
Well, the
fun.
pleasure is truly, I feel like, VACAYA's. So I'm glad that it can be mutual. We always love when it's mutual, as it should be mutual.
Wait, how would you describe your show?
Oh, I usually do the piano bar show. So that means that people come up, they give me requests, and myself and the pianist try to honor as many of those requests as we possibly can. It's so much fun singing what people want. So it makes the whole show fully inclusive of the audience that's there, which really brings people into the present moment.
And everyone connects over it. And
And then people like get together and pick songs like, we should go ask for, Saving All My Love. And then I'm like, great, I'll sing it. Let's do it. Let's do it. It's great.
Has there ever been a song request, not even just like for VACAYA, but in general, that you're like, oh, I don't know about this?
I have 2 no-sing songs.
Okay.
But I will sing them for money in these spaces. So in the piano bars in New York City, the song requests are given by money. So for certain monetary donation, I will sing these 2 songs, but they have to be above like $50 because I won't do it otherwise. Aside from that, no, anything that I know or even sort of know, if I don't know the song, I'll have the pianist, do a filler song while I go listen for a few seconds, get the vibe,
and that's smart.
And then come back and sing the song that I've never sung. And it's so fun to like exercise that like ability. It's really fun.
I think that's the joy of live performance versus anything that's on camera. So there's a certain level of spontaneity, and then you add this like extra layer of it's something that you've maybe never rehearsed or rehearsed within like 60 seconds and you're like,
yeah, a lot of the songs I know I've learned like through osmosis. Like someone asked me to sing Still the One, the Shania Twain song a few days ago, and I was like, I used to listen to that on Delilah. So sure,
Yes.
I like know
on
it.
Delilah.
Yeah, you remember Delilah?
Yes. Whoa.
TBT, we love her.
do you feel like there was an added complexity for your experience coming into your non-binary identity? What was the process like to get to the point at where you are now?
A great question. So personally, a couple things come up for me. The first thing is that when I was younger, I have some very specific memories of clothing that I wanted. My mom said, absolutely not. There's no way, you're not a boy, all these things, whatever. And like, I know I'm dressing pretty femme. I generally do, especially when I'm on cruises too, or when I'm performing, because I find that personally, I find power in the femininity, but I find authenticity in the masculine, if that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah.
So
it's just like how I identify. Like I really feel like myself when I'm wearing more masculine attire, but I feel like I know what the audience wants from me. Like I'm trying to get them to enjoy me. And I do have a fun time. It's kind of just like being in drag for me.
Oh, yeah. It's a stage persona.
It's the performer in you that is like, this is the persona for, and I'm sure it also fluctuates per venue, per show, per audience too.
And the more comfortable I feel, the more I'll like add in a piece here that may be a little more masculine, but I don't generally perform when I'm physically feeling more masculine because my power comes from the femininity. And I think the duality of that is super wonderful, and I love having that duality in my own body. So I feel really confident when it comes to those things.
The power and duality is crazy.
Yeah. And the fact that I'm able to exercise it in real time in this real world, like I was not allowed to do a lot of things when I was a kid. I had to do ballet and not karate. I did a little karate, but then my mom was like, no. I like have played with masculine things a lot, and that sounds funny.
You know what? There's a double entendre there. Why not? A little sips into that.
Cheers.
Cheers to that. Yeah.
Cheers.
I just realized we didn't even do a cheers at the beginning.
But anyway, yeah, the duality that I experience and that I'm able to show the world that I have is really exceptional because I'm able to do it and feel safe still. It's not something I've felt safe my whole life doing.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't really come out as non-binary until my child was born. And I think it was the hyper-femininity and feminization of my body during pregnancy that reminded me, like, I've never felt good being she, her. I've never been like, oh no, that's, you know, I've always just like, you know, I get it. And I'm also like methinks they protest too much because anytime I'd see someone misgendering someone, I'd be like, get it right.
Sure.
I'm an ally to these people.
Sure.
Oh, there's a mirror right there. Shit. I was like hyper defensive of my friends who were non-binary and queer and like visibly queer. And I've always been jealous of people who were visibly queer and been like, oh, I want that. And then I was pregnant and everyone was miss and ma'am and lady and let me help you, you know? And I was just like, rip my skin off. Why is this so weird? And then I was like, I have diagnosed ADHD. I'm on the ASD autism spectrum. I have a little bit of OCD. I have anxiety, depression, PTSD. So many letters. But it's because I've lived a traumatic life and, you know, but I'm doing great. And I'm like taking my meds, taking care of myself, doing really well. But it's hard, the journey to like get to mental health. Mental health is so real. It's so important. Like go to therapy.
Every camera.
Everyone go to therapy. We can all go to therapy. There's nothing wrong with it. Taking 1 hour a week to focus on your own health and not be judged for it. And you can talk to your partner, your friends, whatever, but they all kind of either relate it to their own lives or they
have a bias,
or they want to help persuade you because it's more beneficial for them for you to not be a certain thing or to be a thing. And they might not even be doing that on purpose.
Totally.
But having a space that is safe for you to be who you are and speak openly and honestly about your feelings about things really opens up the world. But life is long and the journey is also long, and it's so good to like find people who get you and also like to know that like it's okay at any point in your life to realize something and there's no shame in it and there's no like if people try to shame you or make you feel weird, like that's not, it's them. Like I did at 32 realize that I was non-binary. Certain things just didn't feel right to me. And it's okay at any point in your journey to be like, you know what? I know it's a spectrum and I've always only dated women, but there's something about this person. You know what? Go for it. Why not? Live your best life. You only get the one.
Would you say there's like a relief that comes with that realization?
Oh, absolutely. When I started, you know, softly by going with she, they, and then I was like, maybe I'm more they, she. And then finally I was like, strictly they, them, don't she, me, don't her, me, please. I would prefer if you don't. The only like feminine things that I still prefer is I like my kid to call me mommy. I don't like when other people call me mommy. Unless they're referring to me to my child.
Sure. Like,
or if they're like, oh, they're a mommy, like that's fine. But like when like guys are like, hey mommy, I'm like, no,
I'm not your mommy.
Yeah, like, I don't care how you spell it, I'm not your mommy.
I think you're pointing out something very important, which is there's a radicalization, people are calling it, of terms when really it's just like there's a power to giving a definition to something. And even though it's used frequently, it means something to everyone.
Yeah.
So like availability to do that is essential to like mental health.
Yeah.
For
Listen,
example.
the minute someone said you have ADHD, I was like, oh my God.
This feels...
Yeah. I'm seeing all these patterns that I'm doing. And I'm like, there's got like, everybody doesn't like flatten their rice out just so that they can take each bite as a first bite. When I go to bed, I have a terrible series of flashes that happen in my mind. I thought everybody had that.
Let's hear it.
It lasts for 45 minutes usually to an hour. And I just see, you know, werewolves and just dark, horrible things as I'm falling asleep.
Every night.
Every night.
You're like, it's time for bed, but it's also time for me to spiral.
Yes. And I thought everybody did that. I've seen like people have a hard time falling asleep. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, who doesn't?
Yeah.
And then I was talking to my therapist and she was like, that's PTSD. She's like, like you take medicine for the depression, but you're not taking meds for the PTSD. And I was like, yeah, because like I know I have PTSD. I was through a lot of traumatic. And she was like, so maybe we get on some. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I see. I thought everybody had this thing happen
Yeah.
to them, but apparently.
That's how I felt about anxiety. Like
Yeah.
the minute I saw the right person, who's my psychiatrist, to be like, oh, you shouldn't be living like this and you need help. It's scary. I mean, it's very scary to be like, oh, I can't do something on my own.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the case for everybody, but for me, like the control.
Yeah.
And then to be on Prozac and be like, wow, this is really wild.
Lexapro, Vyvanse, propanolol.
Well,
We just list the sponsor. We list the sponsorship in front of us and here's the list.
I know, right?
Just for the three of us here on
sponsor
screen at
us.
the
I
moment.
know, literally. It's just going to keep going, keep going, keep going.
It makes me so happy to be at a point to like have gotten the help, but also so sad, to be honest, of like, wow, for the last 15 years, I could have maybe had a very different experience, which
Yeah.
is to say, like, it got me to where I am, and I feel
Sure.
very lucky for that.
Yeah.
But like,
But you're allowed to mourn what could have been too
Sure.
on that journey. I absolutely agree with that.
what has your VACAYA experience been? Like, what is,
my God.
what is, or I guess even like just to make it even more broad, like what is traveling as a queer person been like, especially someone who like can date all genders?
Yeah. That's a great question. My ex-wife and I would travel sometime. Libby and I were holding hands getting onto a boat to go snorkeling. The gentleman like noticed us immediately and they were like, oh, God, you guys are good friends. And we're like, yeah, the best. And then after snorkeling, she was like helping me because I'm not as good of a swimmer as she is. So she'd help me around. And then when we got back in, we like held each other and like kissed and they were like, oh, you're really good friends. And then as we were getting off, they were like, are you guys like, and I was like, married? Wives? That's my wife. So yeah, we're wives, we're married. And they're like, oh, and they just, all of them were like
They've like never seen-
giggling. They'd never
It's like a
seen.
novelty. Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird for them. And I found also that like at the resort that we were staying at, there, resorts tend to be like Tennessee. You know what I mean?
Sure.
They're just,
Ooh, that's a great term.
but you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
they
I
just,
do.
it's everyone from that area doing their one big trip.
Yeah.
And that's who's there.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of dirty looks holding hands. And we got a lot in this country that we'd never been to. All these people were looking at us badly. It was really disconcerting, especially
Yeah,
because we're
of course.
interracial. So
Yeah.
it's very confusing for people, not just because we're interracial, but because we're also women or female bodied. That was really and we've gone to a few other places that were like fun and we always get looked at. It's always weird. And then we did the first VACAYA trip, which was the Venice in Croatia, which was so fun. And the food was
Beyond.
immaculate. Oh my God.
Beyond.
So good. And that boat, it was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
But the time off the boat, I feel like VACAYA does such an incredible job of sourcing the places to make sure the guests feel safe no matter where we are. And you can't change every place,
Right.
but there was not a single dock that I got off at and felt unsafe or like people were staring at me because I was brown or because I was in a lesbian relationship. My VACAYA experiences have been absolutely incredible. The other one I was on was Puerto Vallarta, which is like not a cruise.
Yeah,
but
it's the resort,
The
yeah.
resort, but it was banging. It was great.
Yeah.
Because PV is,
It's PV.
it's PV.
Yeah.
In PV.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it too much.
no,
No,
we
we
can.
should.
No.
Okay,
yeah.
but the red light vote, I remember the girls coming and they were just like, yeah, I threw on my strap. I had a couple boys and I'm like, I love
Ooh,
that.
I love
And like
that.
people,
Yes.
everybody was like cool. And some guys were like, no, I'm cool. And other guys were like, yeah, why not? Why not? We're here. You want to do it. I want to do it. So let's go. And I loved that some people were just like safe and feeling good about it. And the other thing that I really loved was the deck, the
Oh, nude.
the nude deck,
Uh-huh.
which everyone was like, everybody's welcome here. And it definitely was a boys' party.
Sure.
But the gals would come out. I tried to get a lot of the lesbians and the non-binary
Yeah.
folks to come up. And some of them came up. They weren't always comfortable, but people are on different parts of their journey physically.
Correct.
I mean, I personally, like, I've lost 160 pounds, so I'm not always comfortable being like super naked, but like I'll be topless, my boobs look
Hell
good.
yeah.
Like, and also what I loved is that they weren't afraid of doing it in front of me.
Yeah.
Like there was maybe one or two older gentlemen who were
Sure.
like, can I do this in front of a lady? And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, not a lady, but
Right.
but like, yeah, you can, because this is the new deck. I'm here. I know what I signed up for.
Yeah.
You know what you signed up for. So you're going to see some boobies. I'm going
Yeah.
to see some balls, and nary the twain shall meet.
Yeah. And I mean,
And if they do, YOLO.
great. And that's where consent is so important. Like
Consent
it's vital.
It takes 0 seconds to ask, like, hey, is it okay if I do this?
Yeah.
Are you okay with this?
Yeah. My friend Michael Isaacs always says, what makes it hot? Consent. And I say that all the time.
Ooh,
because
I love
I
that.
steal it from him all the time. And I always quote him because he's so right. Like the first thing you do when you're finding a new partner is like, you okay with butt stuff? You okay with it? Like, what do you like? For several reasons, but one is like, I want to make sure that you're enjoying yourself, and I want to do the things that you
Yes.
enjoy, and I don't want to fucking step on your boundaries. I don't want to fucking traumatize you if you've got a thing about you're afraid of being choked.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like,
Sure.
but you know what I mean? Like, if you're not into
Already
that-
unlearning, relearning, like
right. So we give space to everything. We don't kink shame.
Yeah.
We just say, okay, so you're not into toes. Got it.
Yeah. Well, and that's
keep my
even like
socks on.
that's even
That's
like
okay.
the red light for PV. Just to explain it real quick, on some of our trips we have a red light district. In PV we had a red light boat because we couldn't have that happen on property. So we had a boat, and that was kind of like a sexy,
A
play
glowing
space.
red play space.
like the Eagle, for instance.
Sure.
Like last night I was hoping that I would, even though I know that the Eagle is obviously a male dominated
Yeah, yeah.
space, like in that space they have like no sexism, no racism, no transphobia. It's all listed throughout the space,
Yeah.
inviting and making sure that everyone feels welcome, so that, because let's be real, like we've spent so long not being able to explore,
Yeah.
especially for trans and non-binary
Yes.
people, to be able to do that and to do it safely, like, and to also create the space. Like it's all about creating spaces, and that's
Yeah.
why like Stonewall Inn is so vitally important,
So
it's
important.
literally like the first pinnacle space of making sure that everyone has a safe space within the community to be with who they love and to explore how they want.
Yeah.
And then I think that the next kind of wave of that is making sure that we have safe sex spaces for
Yeah.
people within the community to also do that, because there's so much shame around sex
In
as a
general,
blanket
yeah,
statement.
Yeah.
It's heightened for queer people, but
Sure.
you know, like I have heteronormative friends who like the idea of being poly, or like
Yeah.
are toying around with the idea of open relationships, but they don't know where they can or how they can explore
They don't know the
that.
language. I've been explaining it to a
Yes.
couple of friends of mine recently about how polyamory, explain the difference between polyamory and openness,
Yep.
and what that looks like for cis people, what that looks like for queer people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very like hot topic, especially because some people feel like it's greedy or,
Mm-hmm.
indecisive. Personally, I'm pansexual and polyamorous
Same.
always. And like, I like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But in general, I've found that like, I like when the equipment's attached. I like when it's not attached. You know what I mean? Like, it's great. And it doesn't matter. It's like hearts, not parts. Everybody has different rules in their polyamory. For me, it's like, unless you're like with your other partners with me, if I'm in the room with you, then I
You're
should
the
be,
priority.
I'm the priority.
Yeah, I like that.
You should be taking care of me. Or, like you can talk to people and do your thing, live your life.
Yeah.
But also like, just like, like, cause I like attention.
Yeah.
And if I don't feel like I'm getting attention, well, I'm like Tinkerbell and I die.
Trevor, can you relate to that?
I don't know, Kevin. Do you think I can relate to that?
Excuse us for a minute.
Communication doesn't have to be verbal. It can
Right.
be a check-in of saying like, I'm talking, I'm enjoying, and really getting to know this person. But
You-
I know that we
see
came
you,
here, I
yeah.
see you, and like we're doing a little check-in. And I
Yeah.
feel like that you do that great.
Yeah.
It can be that simple. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be
Hey, how you
okay,
doing?
yeah, like
Are you feeling all right? Do you feel validated right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay.
And there's
I'll
some
come back.
beauty to that
Yeah.
too, of allowing there to then be space to like
Yeah.
whatever that connection is that you like just had, to then having the space to like mentally work through it on your own, to be like, okay, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or it was more than I thought it was going to
Sure.
be. And now I can come back to you and talk about
Yeah.
it, and then have a space, a safe landing zone to
Yeah.
talk about it. Ugh.
I always use that term. There's two terms I was teaching another friend of mine about, like anchor and or primary. I don't know if you guys use that term. So a lot of people who are in polyam relationships use the terms anchor or primary person, as in like you have a primary partner or like an anchor who's like your home.
Yeah.
And then you have other partners who some people call them secondaries. Some people call them just other partners. And there's like a lot of language to all of it, especially in polycules. They get really like specific. Some have like a hierarchy thing. I don't really love that because I don't want to be number 3 for anybody. You know what I mean? I don't like that.
I like the word anchor. I've never heard that.
Yeah, anchor is like, this is my home.
Yeah.
And like, this is the person who I live with, who I plan my life with. This is my person. And we all like a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, we all like to have a little fun and like be with other people. And like, that doesn't mean that you're not getting what you need. It just means like, life is long and we should be experiencing as much as we can.
Well, and all those experiences hopefully then benefit the other relationships that you have.
They sure can if you do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't get done right, then it's like, okay, well, here's an opportunity to learn more, you know, like
and to grow.
Yeah. And instead of feeling stagnant or like, it's crazy. Like I'm 33 and I feel like a lot of people that I know who like have been in relationships for 5 years, it's like that are, I'd say more heteronormative maybe, but like they feel stagnant. And it's like, you're only 33, like you're maybe 1/3 through life, you know, and that's...
Well, I mean, you guys can attest to that too, though. Like long-term relationships are just, it's easy to get that way. I mean, I think that's kind of, I can touch on it very lightly of like something what's happened to me, because once we had a kid, a lot of our conversations turned to who's taking care of the baby, who's taking the trash out, who's buying the next round of diapers, you know, and it can get difficult. No, that's not an excuse for anything. It's not an excuse to not like try with your partner, but it can be really daunting, the pressure of keeping the life that you're creating like going, as well as like keeping it interesting and like wanting to have, you know, I think all of us in the back of our minds, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for everyone, but like we still kind of have the idea of like, okay, I create this idea of what my life is going to be. And then I do it every day. And then I do it every day. And then I do it every day. And then what? Because then we just keep doing it every day. And then it happens.
When I think about that, it reminds me of a value system, because I feel like as long as you're checking in with like what you value and you're continuing that, I think that's the path that keeps it consistent but not monotonous. Yeah. Because you're still like acknowledging, I feel very strongly about my relationship styles.
Sure.
And these types of boundaries. Therefore, I will react and interact based off of that.
Yeah. And I think like check-ins are always super important too.
How do you think the difference is between your experience of dating women versus men, or women presenting versus men presenting?
Sure.
And any tips for people who might be curious or wanting to explore dating all genders?
Yeah, I date all genders. You know, I have a thing for brown-haired white girls. I also have a thing.
Listen up. Listen up.
I am polyamorous. And I also have a thing for like, you know, like I'm from Connecticut, so like the tall white man aesthetic is like my thing also. But I've dated people all over the spectrum. I love someone who is queer and visibly queer. It's so hot to me. Like there's nothing hotter than like black trans man is like so hot to me, you know? And I think the number one thing in all relationships, no matter what they look like, is communication. It's communication. It's communication about consent. It's communication about what makes you comfortable and what makes you feel seen and validated and heard. It's conversation about, or communication about your finances. Now, you don't have to talk about your money with everybody, but like I have someone who I was seeing, I found out they made a significantly less amount of money than me. And I thought, oh, why have you been paying for dinners when I can afford it? I just thought like you were just being like, I'll pay for this. And they felt because they were a cis man that like they had to. And I was like, that's bull. And please, that's not a thing. I think just talking about what is important to you is super important, and it opens your ability to have real conversations. As a mostly lesbian person, like communicating is like my number one thing.
It's such a turn on.
It is. Like, tell me about like everything. I got time.
We are right at that time, and I want to just say how appreciative I am of you sharing
thanks.
all
And
of
your time.
and being vulnerable.
Of course.
How lucky we all are to be in this space of like a queer renaissance, you know, started here, and we get to enjoy it. And so I'm grateful for that. And the people who've made this happen for us. It's a beautiful thing we've just shared.
Yeah, cheers, friends. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
It's so good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So beautiful inside and out. And it was a very great reminder of community, and especially like the very specific nature of New York and how community can work for them.
Yeah, and that won't be the last you'll see of T.Rex. We'll be doing a special interview coming up where we share more of T.Rex's interview on a very special topic. And next week's episode, we are in NOLA.
That's New Orleans.
Oh yeah, I feel like maybe people don't know what NOLA is.
That's why I said that.
Oh, okay. I'm losing my mind. Next week's episode is very fun. We get to talk with 2 V team members while we were in New Orleans for Southern Decadence. And it's a little quadruple. So we'll look forward to next week, and we'll see you all then. Until then, thanks for watching an episode of VTV. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you learned something or if you just found us really sexy and hot.